Coming up on February 26th at the Luna Luna exhibit at the Shed in New York City will be two wonderful guitar players. This duo has been working together for many years, and we'll learn more about that. Bernie Williams and Gil Parris are joining us here on the WBGO Journal for this announcement of this special gig that they're doing. Bernie, of course, I consider one of the most clutch baseball players that ever walked the earth. And it was back in 2015 where the number 51 jersey behind me was retired by the New York Yankees. And Gil Parris was there for that event because
That's
these
right.
two have a special relationship. Bernie, talk about your relationship with Gil, a relationship that has almost been 2 decades.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's so it's so cool to hear 2 decades, man. Uh, and by the way, I don't have too many friends.
Yeah,
I mean, I have a
same.
lot of people that I know, and a lot of people know me, but I don't have a lot of people that I can truly call my friend. And Gil has certainly fit that bill. I mean, I remember the first time I saw him. I was just mesmerized by his guitar playing at a jam that I went to right after a game. I was still playing. I think probably maybe 2 years before I retired, '05,
Yeah,
'04. And he was at the Lazy Boy Saloon in White Plains on that Wednesday night jam. And I was like, this guy can play. And, I took the opportunity after the set to talk to him a little bit. And I said, hey, my name's Bernie Williams. I kind of, play baseball, but I like to play guitar a little bit. And it was like, I know who you are. I was like,
Yeah,
it
you
just,
kind of play baseball, yeah. Just one of
uh,
the Yankee greats of all time. Gil,
and
you
then
remember
he just kind of went from there.
Gil,
yeah.
take us back to that day when he said, "Yeah, I'm Bernie Williams," and you go, "Yeah, I know who you are."
Of
Talk about
course.
that. I mean, we see this all the time. Bernie's a serious guitar player, but we see this synergy between musicians and athletes all the time. Gil, take us back to that moment.
Well, I was a baseball fan too, so I was asking him questions. I remember talking about Bobby Mercer, and um, he kept coming back. So I would bring him my instructional books and videos, and then we started hanging out, and he was coming to shows. And in about 2007, I put on a show with Randy Brecker and Paul Schaefer and just great people. And he came to the show. He was still playing, and then he just jumped up and played with us. It
Yeah,
was
I was mildly coerced to go on stage.
yeah, very coerced, but you were
It
having so much fun. You got the bug.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the things that I really have Gil to thank for is that he gave me the kind of like the green light to kind of be myself. I knew, I mean, all the people in our circles were, great Yankee fans, but it was all about the music. It was, it became more about, can this guy play? And he has, he's working seriously to become a better player. And he just gave me the opportunity to express myself in that artistic way, without the whole, Yankee baseball kind of thing. And it was all about, getting better and really learning a lot from him. He was, even though I think he's like about 3 months younger than me, but he was kind of like my mentor
Yeah,
in those years. And oh, he never lets me forget it though. It was
I
like,
never let him forget.
but he was, I just came, like he said, I just kept coming back to the jams, and I think it took me a while to kind of get my instrument there and just start playing a little bit, little by little. And I mean, it was him and his band, Joe Pidio, Kid Sofas, Curtis. They all took me under their wing, and they let me, they got me that freedom to express myself, without any kind of attachments. You play, if you can play, you play with us. And they let me kind of be myself, and I'll be forever grateful, for that opportunity.
It didn't hurt that he had a good work ethic. I mean, you know, and
Oh, I mean,
aptitude.
everything worthwhile, man. It requires that work ethic. So, but I think you still need to have, a vehicle or an opportunity,
Yeah,
to kind of express that, in more of a somewhat of a public setting. I mean, we started playing jams, and I started kind of get a little bit more confident in my playing, and I kind of just came from there. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm playing shows, and I'm being invited to sit in, with people, and it was a natural progression. But I just kept working hard, and I just really appreciate the opportunity that they gave me early on in my musical career.
Gil, you're considered, a virtuoso on the guitar. You play all kinds of, different genres of music, whether it be jazz, blues, rock, pop.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it about Bernie that you like playing with him?
Well, well, first of all, we're friends, which, there's that whole aspect, but he has a natural ability. Like when we play together rhythmically, everything just blends. And it's been like that since the beginning. And it's funny, we don't even have to talk about it. We just sort of maybe we'll talk a little bit, but there's this sense that we have after built up after 20 years where it's like telepathy, and it's obvious. And we notice it and the audience notices it. So it's been a great thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sound too. Those that have heard you play together, and also when you're with the quartet, just wonderful sounds together. When you have the quartet, it's Will
Yeah,
Lee, of course, who's super
yeah.
talented, the multi-talented drummer and vocalist Josh Dion. It's quite a quartet. But coming up on the 26th, it will be the two of you. Bernie, you said something that I think really speaks to you, and that is you are serious about this music, and you are serious about a musician, and you've been doing it for quite some time. But you had the skills early on because I remember it was back in 2009, you joined me for a special edition of Sports Jam and to talk about moving forward. And when you started talking about the music, I didn't recognize Bernie Williams anymore. You were talking about your daughter at the time and writing songs about her. And I was like, is this the same Bernie Williams that played for the Yankees who didn't say that much? Because baseball was just one side. Music brings out such an expression of you, not only through your guitar, but I think also inside you that maybe you didn't know you had when you were playing baseball.
Yeah, I mean, that is so correct, and I think that I've utilized music as a means of expression since I was about 8 years old. I consider myself very introverted, very shy kid growing up, and when my dad introduced me to play guitar back in those days, I just fell in love with it in a way that it became my way of expressing myself and my emotions in a way that words couldn't explain. And I was very fortunate. My mom was an educator in Puerto Rico, and she got me this great opportunity to go to a performing arts high school. So music has always been a big part of my life. I mean, I would venture to say now in retrospective that, my involvement in music allowed me to be a better baseball player, making these connections with life and all about math and timing and rhythm. Baseball is all about that. Hitting the ball and meeting the ball in the right place at the right time is the same thing as hitting a note in the right place at the right time in the bar. And having making those analogies and this similarities that I found make me a better baseball player. And I took music, to heart ever since I was a little kid, and it was a really, really important part of my life. Even when I was playing baseball, I always played, not professionally to the level that Gil played, but it was just a means of expressing myself. And I just kind of took the next logical step, which was kind of trying to make sense of, the language of music, not only jazz, but the emotional aspect of music, how to play a chord that would like struck to somebody's heart. And those things that are so important that are part of the language of music, which is one of the things that I love when I play with Gil, is the fact that we actually finish each other's sentences. He taught me how to listen and how to react. But that, with that said, that involves an enormous amount of work because you want the instrument to be enhance your thought process and not be a hindrance. you want to think about a concept and you want to be able to play it right away, and you don't want the instrument to kind of stop you from doing that. So in order for you to do that, you got to work your bottom end, for you to
Yes.
be able to express yourself in a way that you find that people can feel it. The people that you're playing with you, want to play with you because you have a lot of resources and all that. Having that the language of music, it's a really important part of my playing, and being able to listen and react to what's happening in the bandstand. It's just where I get most of my enjoyment.
The
Yeah.
word trust always comes into play when you're on stage. You have to trust the people that you're with. Bernie's teammates certainly trusted him, especially in the playoffs, right? He would always come through with the big, he's one of the most clutch performers ever in baseball playoff history. Gil, what are we going to hear from the two of you on the 26th?
So we always kind of do a mixed bag. I arrange some TV show themes and some songs that were hits in the 70s, but we play them kind of as jazz or as Latin jazz at times. So there's a lot of improv, there's a lot of listening. They'll be trading back and forth. We might have a guest or two drop by. So, you know, I just want to keep it fun for the audience. So things that are kind of familiar, maybe some originals, but also where we can kind of journey off on some themes that they know.
You're Grammy nominated guitarist. Bernie is Latin Grammy nominated. I
Yeah.
want to talk just very briefly about the Grammys. The Latin jazz and the jazz categories, the blues categories, are not on television, right? And so many wonderful artists are performing, but yet we see the same people over and over. Not only do are they nominated in the pop categories and what's happening right now in pop culture, but we see them react to everybody their wins too. There's no variety on television. The Grammys go to those categories, but we don't see them. Gil, what's your thought about that right now? It gets worse each year.
Well, yes, I
Don't
think
get him started on that, man.
yeah, the cultural relevance has changed. I mean, I remember growing up watching The Tonight Show, and Jim Hall would be the special guest, and John McLaughlin would be playing Cherokee with the orchestra, and that, but you really don't see that as much now. It's not, but there are a lot of distractions now, social media and TikTok videos, and so, but I still think people are searching for the beauty. It might not be in the mainstream as much on TV, but it's still there. We're sold out every time we play.
Yeah.
So,
Your thoughts on that, Bernie?
Yeah, I think there is still, like Gil said, there is a longing for having more variety and more substance to the music, not necessarily lyrics, but, as far as you know, the sounds that you hear. I think to me, it comes down to education. I think, having a background like the background that I had in music allowed me to understand, the emotional content of the music, the substance, where you can play a chord and you say, well, this sounds sad, this sounds happy, this sounds great, this sounds a little bit, but having the knowledge to discern, and having that as part of the soundtrack of your life, like we grew up, listening to a lot of great music, and my parents did not make me choose. They say, as long as you got good grades, you can play music. But the aspect of listening to the music also, and what it made me feel like, not necessarily the lyrics, because I think I'm one of the people that would listen to the song, and if I like the actual song, the harmony and the chords, then I'll listen to the lyrics. It's not the other way around. So I think, for me, it just comes to education and kind of placing a lot of value in the emotional content of music, and not only the lyrics. And I think, as long as we have that zeal to educate our kids, the next generation, maybe this thing could come back, and we start listening to some more substance, and and pay more attention to harmony and the emotional content of the actual music, not necessarily the lyrics involved in it.
We are seeing more and more younger people coming to the jazz clubs. over the past couple of years, of course, coming out of the pandemic. When we, thank goodness, the Super Bowl was held in New Orleans, so at least the pregame show, we
Right.
had Terrence Blanchard and John
Yeah.
Batiste, and Harry Connick Jr. and playing some jazz out there that
was
people can appreciate. Gary Walker, who you both know, been our daybreak host on WBGO for more than 4 decades, has always said this: jazz never loses a fan. Once you're listening to jazz, you stick with it. It's just being exposed to it and having people, surround it. That hasn't been a problem for either of you. But for some artists, getting their name out there. But Gil, you've been popular for years, and of course, Bernie, you two working together has been magical. Is there something that you try to do though, Gil, when you see maybe a younger audience out there, that you do anything to show them that, hey, this is the music they should be listening to?
Oh, well, yeah. I'm always trying to encourage and inspire, even though maybe the business, if they want to go into this, maybe the business has changed and it's a little rougher, but still, there's the humanity of music and you got to keep it going and learning and striving. And I think that jazz is that. And God bless Gary for saying that because it's so true, never loses a fan.
Yeah, I agree with Gil, and I think, uh, we're living, this is one thing to say, good music never goes out of style. It just gets recycled. But at the same time, we're dealing with a lot of factors that we didn't have to deal, back, maybe 20, 30 years ago. I mean, there's this sort of immediate self-promoting of a culture thing that almost puts music on the back burner. You just kind of promote yourself and then, oh yeah, so by the way, he plays music as well. So music has sort of taken a backseat in many ways to the self-promoting or the imaging or the, whatever, marketing thing you have going. And I think that, that it sort of has to come back to a certain point where music becomes the main thing, and then everything else kind of comes secondary. I think, it has that. I think music, good music, people are longing to hear more than a beat,
Yeah.
more than, it's the whole, I mean, it's like, when I make this analogy, when, back in the day, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, people were putting so much emphasis in baseball to the home run and hitting the launch angle and all that. A lot of all the other aspects of what makes the game great got sort of swept under the rug, and the game became sort of one-dimensional.
Yeah, that's all we have 180 hitters in the starting lineup now, Bernie. That's why.
Yeah, and you all or nothing, and it's all about hitting home runs when you can bunt and you can move the runner over. You can, there's beauty in stealing a base. There's beauty in hitting a triple. There's a lot of aspects of baseball that were kind of swept under the rug because people were just kind of like so infatuated with home runs. And I think, bringing that to music, bringing music and the whole totality of what the music experience is, as opposed to kind of concentrating on just one beat or maybe a lyric or maybe just a rap. You just being robbed of the whole experience of the musical life. And I think it has to go back to that.
One of Bernie Williams' heroes, somebody I saw in the 1971 World Series, and then much later after he had passed, I had his wife Vera Clemente on Sports Jam, and I'll never forget when Vera told me some things about Roberto. He loved calypso music and he loved to dance. And even though his back was so bad that at times he couldn't even get out of bed, he would still perform magnificently for the Pittsburgh Pirates. When you think about how people tie the sports and music together, how about in Puerto Rico? How they responded to Bernie Williams playing the guitar? What kind of reaction are you getting in your native country?
I'm getting a great reaction. I think that a lot of people still don't know that I have this vast musical background. Most people know me for, my years with the Yankees and the World Series championships, and they kind of relate that. But there's more and more people because I've been retired, almost like say the better part of 20 years almost. They're making this, oh, it's like, oh, he played baseball, but he also has this other uh, dimension to him. He's an artist. He plays music. He has that whole thing. And I think it is very important for, especially for kids, to understand that you have to be a whole person. And playing sports is great, but you need to be a kid. You need to do good in school. You need to have some artistic capacity to understand, at the very least, to understand how hard it is to be an artist, how hard it is to make music so you can appreciate it. Being exposed to those things as a kid gave me the opportunity to appreciate it at a level, and then just fell in love with it. And I think that it's happening more and more in Puerto Rico, and they now a lot of people know me, not only for the baseball thing, but the Latin Grammy nominations, and the fact that I also play guitar, and that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, and you had a so-so career too, four-time World Series champion, five-time All-Star, four-time Gold Glove Award winner, batting champion. You did okay. You did okay, Bernie. You did
Not
all
to
right
shout,
on the
not to
baseball
shout.
net. Gil, you've had a magnificent career yourself. You've worked with some legends yourself, Dr. John, Diane Shure, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Tony Braxton. What moment for you always comes back into your mind when you go on stage and you go, oh yeah, I'll never forget either when I was with Dr. John or Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Is there any moment that kind of comes back to you more than others?
I was just thinking, I did a week with Diane Shure at the Blue Note, and Bernie came, and I was like, "This is awesome," and he was so into it. And I always think every artist that you mention, and there's like, I always take something with me from them.
That
There's
was a hard book to
always,
learn, man. That was a hard book to learn. I
yeah,
remember her saying all the time, "Go crazy, Gil, go crazy."
yeah, yeah. It was very varied. She's an incredible artist, and and the Blood, Sweat, and Tears. David Clayton Thomas was singing when I was doing it back. That's 2000, 2001, and that was varied too. There's a lot of different music, and but with each artist, I always kind of take something. So I don't know. I've enjoyed being a recording artist too. So, but as far as the sideman thing is, I think it enriches my own thing. So, you know,
You kind of answered the question for it was what have you learned as a sideman that you take with you as, as a recording artist and doing your own solo stuff when you're not with Bernie?
oh, I mean, I just played with Eric Marienthal, the sax player, with Chick Rimini. I mean, he's incredible. It's like, and having to like trade and play with him and Gerald Albright. We did a big band thing at Berks Jazz Festival a couple of years back, and these guys are amazing, and they bring your level up. So as Bernie will tell you, um, but there's too many to mention. So and I take something from everybody.
You and I talked a little bit before we did this interview, and I mentioned to you, and obviously you agree because you've been a longtime friend. Bernie Williams is different, isn't he? He's just so nice. I don't know anyone that has ever said anything. Do you have enemies, Bernie?
I left all my feistiness on the baseball field. That's when I was at Civil. You wouldn't recognize me as a baseball player in the dugout. I was a
Oh,
completely different guy, very intense and very methodical, very like that killer instinct. And that sort of allowed me to become this other person, this nicer version of me when I'm playing. And I know that, one thing that I take from my dad, and a long time ago, he told me, just treat your fans, with respect because they can bring you up, but they can bring you down. And it doesn't cost you anything to be nice. I think for every person that I meet, it could be the millionth person in my experience, for maybe for that person is just the first one. And you want that to be one that they will remember fondly. You say, hey, I met Bernie Williams, this time, and he was such a nice guy. That's the one thing that you want people to talk about, when they talk about you. I mean, you're not perfect and you're human, and there's some
Yeah.
times that it will be humanly impossible to be nice to absolutely everybody that you meet, depending on what's happening in your life, you know. But for the most part, you try to make a conscious effort to make sure that everybody that meets you gets that experience, that positive experience, so you can pay it back and be nice to everybody.
Even Red Sox fans.
Even Red Sox. I mean, I take it as a compliment. It's a compliment. They say, "Hey, I hated the Yankees, but I respect you, man. I like what you do." I was like, "Hey, man, I take that as a compliment."
What song is special to you that you'll be playing on the 26th, Bernie?
Well, I mean, I don't know. We're still working on the set list. I think we're going to have a lot of the music that Gil has written and he has arranged. I got a couple of arrangements myself, but we actually very recently recorded a tune called "Good Friends."
Right.
And,
Yeah.
is out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm assuming we're going to make maybe a little bit of an arrangement of that for two guitars. It was a full band tune, and very, it's produced. But maybe we can make maybe a stripped down version of that. We know we have a couple other tunes that I played. I remember playing Sex in the City, from that great, show from HBO. Maybe Ritmo de Otoño, or maybe, some of the stuff that Gil has written. He's a magnificent composer and arrangement in his own right. So I'm looking forward to the gig. I think it's going to be very exciting and very well accepted by the fans.
Before I
Yeah.
let you go, Gil, tell us a little bit more about Good Friends.
Oh, well, we have some music together, and I just thought that was a good intro to like we finally started recording some stuff together. And we have a new single called Picoso that we're working on now. And but I just thought the title, we did a video for it, and it was a good presentation to get some music together out there, you know.
Well, I want to thank both of you for not only the music that you're providing on the 26th and beyond at Luna Luna, and that's the Luna Luna exhibit. And
Yeah.
you can see them coming up on the 26th, as I mentioned. That's at the Shed in New York City, the guitar duo of Gil Parris and Bernie Williams. Special to have you both on the show. I know that you're part of the WBGO family for many years, and we
Yeah.
appreciate it. Bernie, thanks for joining us.
Huge fan. Thank you so much for having me.
Gil, appreciate everything you do.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks so much.
Good friends here on Sports Jam and on WBGO. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, man. Take care.